Okay, so last night, Clay and I watched Shrek Forever After. So at this point, we have seen all of these Shrek movies. I know there's some spin-offs, like I think there's a Christmas special called Shrek the Halls, which I've never seen. And of course, the Puss in Boots movies. But of the pure ogre feature-length films, we have now seen all four. So 2 is my favorite. No question about that. I think 2 might be DreamWorks' best movie. It is in contention for that title. I guess just some of the other films that we've seen that are really in contention for that. Puss in Boots 2, Kung Fu Panda, Prince of Egypt, How to Train Your Dragon. As much as I really, really like it, I think I have to give it its due credit. I don't know if I like it quite as much as those others that I mentioned, but I'll throw it in there as well. But those to me are like the contenders for the crown at the moment. Shrek 1, it's fucking great. It's Shrek 1. Like, it is this cultural milestone. And I was there when it happened. Like, I've grown up in Shrek culture. It's kind of like how I say, like, I grew up when Pokemon was popular and I was in Japan and it was just an amazing experience. So being a kid when Shrek came out was really fucking awesome, and I will never say otherwise. It was so cool to watch, and other DreamWorks, I've grown up with a good chunk of DreamWorks movies, but I feel like Shrek is the one that has left the biggest impact on pop culture. I don't even really think that's debatable. Shrek 3 or Shrek the Third, I enjoyed it. I really did. I think it's pretty funny. I don't think the plot is as interesting as the other movies, but I still like it for what it is, and it gave me quite a good few laughs. Few good laughs. Shrek Forever After, it's on paper, I think it's a really interesting premise. I don't know how well I like its execution. So starting with the beginning of the movie, the basic plot is Shrek and Fiona have their happily ever after. And as they're going through it, and it's, like the same day, like the same things are being said. He keeps getting interrupted every time he's just trying to have some me time. Puss is telling the same story to the kids. And Shrek is clearly not enjoying it. He's kind of like being, let me try that again. He's getting to the point where he's not enjoying his life anymore because it's becoming too routine and too monotonous. And all I could think of is the song Miss Jackson by Outkast. Forever, ever, forever, ever, forever never seems that long until you're grown. The day by day routine can get too long. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is just some Miss Jackson shit. I love this. But it's starting to wear on him. And my interpretation, it's not that Shrek he does not appreciate what he has. I think a lot of it is just stress. Shrek is someone who in the first movie, he values his privacy, but he hates being discriminated against, and he doesn't like to just be alone. Or he doesn't mind being alone, but he is lonely. And as we see in the second movie, he's more than willing to make concessions for the people he loves. All right, I am willing to not be an ogre. I am willing to be a human. I'm going to do what it takes to make my wife happy. So I don't feel like Shrek is the kind of person that'd be like, I'm getting so used to being married to Fiona, the old ball and chain. That's not Shrek to me. And he doesn't say shit like that. But what he does say is I wish things would go back to the way they used to be. Before you rescued me from the dragon? Yes, exactly. It feels really out of character for him to say that or to go that far. And even that conversation he has with Fiona, because they're at the kid's birthday party, and it's just one stressful thing after another. The cake's been eaten. There's this guy who's like, hey, can you do that roar you do? I mean, I don't really want to. It's something I only do when I'm angry or stressed. Come on, my kid wants to see it. And then his kid, do the roar. And then when Shrek gets so pissed off and he does the roar, everyone claps. You got the kid, I love you, daddy. That shit's fucking hilarious. I love that. But You know, he's got this dude annoying him, this kid annoying him, his kids are crying, Donkey is there. So, you know, that's just gonna be, I love Donkey, don't get me wrong, but he's an annoying character. I just think he works. But Shrek finds him incredibly annoying. The fucking cake is eaten. Fiona's like, you gotta make sure you watch the cake. Looks away for 2 seconds. That's gone. Oh, do we have a backup cake? I'm sorry, we eat the backup cake too. And he's just, bah, 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 bah. And I get that. I have had a lot of really stressful days. And sometimes it is just one of those days where everything keeps building, and it's maybe not always a massive thing that happens, but it's an annoyance, and then another annoyance, and it just keeps getting higher, and you reach your breaking point. And sometimes when that happens, you do get really mad, but you need, I don't want to say it. I empathize with Shrek and his frustration, and then him just kind of like, I need to go outside, need a minute to myself, because I'm mad at all the bullshit that I'm dealing with. That's fair. I get that. Then Fiona comes outside, and I feel like the Fiona that I know from these movies would be like, okay, clearly you're really mad about something. What's wrong? Like, instead of immediately going, hey, like, just because you're an ogre doesn't mean you have to act like one. Like, come on, Shrek, why are you being such an asshole? I feel like she would be a little more like, okay, something's off. Do you want to talk about it? How do you want to handle this? Like, you know, it's the kid's first birthday, you know, if they're not going to remember it. But our friends are. We are. You know, this should be something where we're happy. And if you're frustrated, you're stressed out, I want to talk to you about it. I want to help you through it. But instead, she's just like immediately attacking him. And I don't remember if she accuses him of being ungrateful for his friends and family and all that before or after he says that he regrets saving her. Because that, I genuinely don't remember, because him saying that, that's where I lose my empathy for Shrek in this situation. And if she said that afterwards, she's totally justified. If she was saying it beforehand, then I think she's also not as sympathetic in the conversation. But I feel like, yeah, he's a bit too mean here. And then when Rumpelstiltskin shows up, who, let me just say, is the best thing in the movie. I love him. I love this angry little troll and all like the stupid shit he says. He literally has a line in the movie where he goes, nobody's smart but me. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna start saying this all the time. And Clay looks at me, he's like, you're gonna be saying this all the time. I know you. I know that's a line that you immediately are going to love, and I'm gonna hear this a lot. Like, oh yeah, you are. I got like 3 in before the night was over. It was perfect. But on the one hand, I'm also like, Shrek isn't stupid. He wouldn't fall for this guy's bullshit. He'd be able to sniff it out, because Rumpel's not exactly subtle. And he's even like, what's the catch? And there's no catch at all. And then the more he's talking, the more Shrek's just kind of like, okay. Now, I will say, like, he did get Shrek drunk. And you can argue that, yeah, you know, if he's drunk, he's not going to be able to make an informed decision. And even like a sober Shrek, 100% could have seen through Rumpel's bullshit. But when he's drunk, and, you know, he might be a little more willing to fall for him. Like, okay, it's fair. But even if you subscribe by that, there's 2 problems. Problem number 1, even while drunk, he's still very much like, I don't know, Chief. This is sus. This is really sus. And like, you think if you're signing a magical contract, or like you've dealt with a fairy godmother before, you'd be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't deal with this shit. I know you're frustrated. I know you're a little inebriated, but he's not that stupid. The other problem I have, I'm like, well, if he's drunk, then even if he signed it, you know, he wouldn't exactly have consented to it, because he's not in the right state of mind. Now, granted, I mean, I expect magical contracts to have different contract law than it does for, like, California contract law. I'm also like, no, that's not consent, if you argue that. So that's kind of its own problem. I mean, I don't remember if that automatically makes the contract void or if it just makes it voidable. I think at that point it's voidable because it's assumed that you were consenting. However, if you can prove that you were inebriated at the time, there was no actual mutual assent because you weren't in the right frame of mind to be able to do so. So, I can't help but look at that from a lawyer perspective. Like, well, it might not have worked. But so this is all a very long-winded way of saying this movie's premise has an incredibly shaky ground. It's not, and I think that was a massive problem the first time I watched it, and it's still a problem the second time. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, this movie should not be happening. And that is a problem. However, the actual plot is, okay, I want one day to myself, sure, 100%, but magical contracts, give and take. To give a day, or to get a day, you have to give a day. So you give me one day, and I will give you one day where, you don't have to deal with your wife, your kids, any of that bullshit. You can just have a fun day being an ogre and scaring people. And again, that's kind of when Shrek's like, day, huh? I can't just disappear from my family for a day. That's going to be they're going to be sussed out. And, I'm going to be kind of sus too. What the fuck is this? Hey. It could be a day from your past. It could be a day you don't even remember. It could be a day just when you were a baby. And Shrek agrees. It's cool. Rumple steals the day he was born. So after the Shrek's day is now up, he will disappear because he was never born. And because he was never born, he never rescued Fiona from the tower, he never befriended Donkey, he never befriended Puss, etc., etc., etc. The king and queen of Far, Far Away made a deal with Rumpelstiltskin. He will make their problems disappear if they sign it over. Their problems disappeared because he made them disappear, and their problems went with them. I really like Rumpelstiltskin. He's a clever son of a bitch. When he's nobody's smart but me. I'm yeah, it's because he makes a lot of really clever decisions. It's hey, you said all ogres would be free. Yeah, but Fiona's not all ogre, is she? Fuck you. What old bastard. I love this shit. I love this asshole. He's great. I think he's also the only villain to not die in the movie. Because, Charming is a villain in 2, but he's not the main villain. And then he dies in 3. I think. You can make an argument that he's still alive, but Rumple unambiguously survives the movie. And I don't know if they're going to do anything with him in Shrek 5. I really hope they do. But so essentially, Shrek goes to a bad alternate timeline. I can't really say alternate future. It's a bad alternate present. And so what they do with Fiona is kind of cool. She is embraced her ogre side. She is still cursed, but she primarily tries to be an ogre. And is leading this ogre resistance against Rumpelstiltskin. Going full into her Unga Bunga fighting personality, which I think is really cool. Puss in Boots is fat. He got the fat Thor treatment, which I think is hilarious in Endgame, and I think it's hilarious here. Clay had no idea about fat Puss, so he was laughing his ass off. And the scene where Puss eats Gingy, I completely forgot that happened. I was okay, that's pretty funny. Clay was in shock. He's I genuinely didn't expect that. Holy shit. I think he was literally he had to catch his breath laughing when that scene happened. So I like what they do with those two. They don't really do anything with Donkey. He's a donkey that people use to carry their, to pull their wagons, and they just have him sing. And it's yeah, okay, that's a thing, but it's not super funny to me. The scene is kind of funny, where it's every time they want him to change his song, change the channel on the radio, they whip him. It's pretty funny. It's pretty mean-spirited. But I feel like what they do with Puss is really funny. What they do with Fiona is really cool. What they do with Donkey is, oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. Then you kind of think, if Shrek had never been born, all the other movies didn't happen, right? So, what happened to Farquaad is, I guess he's just not in the movie. That could have been really fun. That could have been really interesting. If they have to team up with him and do something, or it's he's just a funny character. I kind of wanted to see him. hey, the fairy godmother and Prince Charming, they're also not in the movie, although they very well could have been. I guess I'll put it to you like this. I'm not saying that, like, man, they had to throw every idea in there, and, like, the fact that you didn't use these characters, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But it is just like I'm noticing things that could have happened, and they just didn't. Like, they don't really do anything with Dragon. It's just, she's just the climax, and it's fine. It's not a bad climax, but, again, there was nothing that felt super unique about it. I feel like that's kind of the problem with the movie. Like, the first movie feels like a unique experience. A traditional fairy tale bad guy and just the big green stupid ugly ogre is your hero going to save the princess. And at the end, the beautiful princess turns into the ugly ogre. It's an interesting idea. It's almost like an anti-fairy tale. I know it's based off a book. I don't know how similar the two are. But that's what the movie is. It's like an anti-fairy tale. But still being a fairy tale because it is still about true love and true love's kiss. Then you get the second movie where the fairy godmother and the Prince Charming, generally like well-regarded fairy tale characters are twisted into antagonists in a way that works and is really interesting. Then you have this one, which doesn't really feel like a fairy tale or even like an anti-fairy tale. Like, who's the bad guy? Oh, it's just Rumpelstiltskin. I mean, he is a fairy tale character, but it's not like we're twisting a really interesting idea and like making a villain a hero or a hero a villain. It's like, no, he's an antagonist character. That's an antagonist character. It's just not super unique. And even this plot, like, oh, so it's just like It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing, which is fine. And again, like, I like some of the things they do, but it's, like, it doesn't feel like a Shrek movie. I think that's really what it is. It's still funny. It's still, like, an interesting idea. But it's, like, not as referential about, like, pop culture, which is not an inherently bad thing. Sometimes I really like that, sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on how, like, on the joke itself or the reference. It's not as referential. The characters are very different. It's not really a fairy tale or even an anti-fairy tale. It's just kind of its own thing. It's a weird way to end the series. Again, especially kind of with the idea of Shrek didn't really know what he had until it was gone, and well, to me, that's not really what the issue was. The issue was just, it's a little too monotonous. I kind of need a bit of, I just need some me time to be able to decompress. Because I don't have that anymore. And it was like, yeah, like, I don't know if they necessarily solved the problem. Because he and Fiona never really talked about it. And that's also kind of a problem, like, when you're in the alternate present. Is he keeps trying to get Fiona to kiss him, but he's not explaining, this is what's going on. Now, granted, you could say, well, she wouldn't believe him. Why the fuck would she believe him? Well, A, he knows all this information about her, which is still pertinent. 2, he has the fucking contract with him that proves it. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, it's like, and also it's like, well, the other thing his strategy is essentially just being really creepy. And not in like a really funny, like, ogre kind of way. It's like, he's just kind of like her stalker who just like, hey, it'd be great, if you could kiss me. It'd be great if you could kiss me. And like, if we didn't know that she was your wife in an alternate timeline, and that you were, trying to get back with the woman you love and fix your mistake, I don't know if I would be rooting for you here. Especially knowing that the next movie is Megamind. I'm like, it almost feels like they kind of took that and said, wait a second, Shrek's like really creepy here, and, what if we took that and made that the villain? And I'm really looking forward to rewatching Megamind. I feel like it's one of those movies that, when it came out, it was good, and it's aged really, really well nowadays. But it's like the way Shrek, like, acts and... Let me try that again. Shrek never really talked through his real problems with Fiona at the start of the movie. And since they were never truly addressed, it's kind of the thing that makes me wonder. It's like, yay, look, it's a happily ever after, but is it? Because I could see, I mean, he's not going to like sign a contract with Rumpelstiltskin again, but I don't know if we really solved the problem. I don't know how to rank this movie. I really don't. Because I feel like I enjoyed it more than 3. Because I did enjoy it. It almost sounds like I didn't. But like, no, like I really liked the antagonist. Even though there were moments with Shrek himself I didn't care for, namely in the beginning of the movie, I still like his character a lot. And I like following him and seeing like what he does. A lot of the jokes landed. Like the whole Pied Piper thing was really cool. Like that to me is classic Shrek. Like, let's take a fairy tale nursery rhyme character and do something fun and unique with them. I was like, oh, this is really fucking cool. I dig this. Rumpelstiltskin's freaking pet goose with like the sharp teeth and just having this feral attitude. Like, yeah, that's a goose. They nailed that shit. I was kind of hoping it'd be the goose that laid the golden egg. Like, that would have been perfect. I think that's in Puss in Boots 1. It's been a while since I've seen it. I know Humpty Dumpty is a major character. I want to say Hansel and Gretel are too. I might be wrong about that. And I think the plot is Puss is trying to catch the goose that lays the golden eggs. But, I did not dislike the movie. So it's not an F tier. It's not a D tier. I feel like it's interesting enough and genuinely likable enough. It's not a C tier movie. It's not an S movie for sure. Is it an A or a B? Because I gave Shrek the Third like an A minus. And I feel like I liked this more than 3. I was more invested. It made me laugh, maybe about as much, maybe a little bit more. But I feel like it has more notable problems than Shrek the Third. So I don't really think I'm going to rank it. At least not right now. When these are all done, I'll be like, here's my definitive list of this is the movie that's the bottom of the fucking barrel. This is the movie. Like, here's the ones I don't really like. Now we're in kind of the mid tiers. Now we're in the good ones. Okay, now we're in just like the S tiers. These are the cream of the crop. And then this is the king of the DreamWorks movies. I feel like this would probably be... It's definitely higher than the mid tiers. But I put it above Sinbad. Because I liked Sinbad quite a bit, but there were some parts of it I didn't super get into, but nobody's smart but me! Okay, that alone makes me want to give it an A tier. Like, that shit was so funny to me. But, I know I've been rambling pretty incoherently for a while now. I feel like I'm just kind of talking in circles. I don't know if I've really been making points. So I guess to sum everything up about this movie, the setup, to me, is very weak, and I don't think it works. The ending, I guess, kind of theme and message of I didn't know what I had until it was gone. I get what they're going for, but I don't think it's conveyed as well as they think, because I don't think that was necessarily the problem. The middle, like the majority of the movie, like the actual premise, is really interesting. I like most of what they do with it. I don't like everything. Although I do like a lot of the ogres. Like, I freaking love Cookie. Like, oh, that's my chimichanga stand. You know, like, y'all gonna be hungry. You can't fight a revolution on an empty stomach. Like, that guy was great. The antagonist, every time he's on screen, is great. I think he's funny. I think he's dangerously clever. And that, to me, is always a great combination for an antagonist. I definitely liked it a lot more the second time through. I liked it more than I disliked it. But I'm probably not going to like it as much as Megamon.